Hi, Susan here. Okay, today you have a treat. I'm going to show you how to make a knitted bodice sloper by draping it on this dress form, and that's what's next. If you're new to my channel, my name is Susan Elias, and I teach everything about fashion design between how-tos, draping, flat pattern, interviews, and exposing the industry all throughout. I had a Patreon account and I had some paid lessons on there. I have since closed my Patreon account and I've uploaded this very important lesson that I did a little while ago on YouTube, and you're going to see that right now. And it is how to drape the bodice sloper in knit fabric, so you can make other knit designs, t-shirts, dresses, blouse, all kinds of anything that has to do with knit designs. So I was very good with knit garments, and I had my own collections and did quite a lot of knit garments. So I have a very key way of doing this process where it is not drafting, where it is not flat pattern, and it's easy to understand, hopefully, and that is what's next. And by the way, if you're going to love this video, give it a thumbs up, give me a comment. I want to hear from you, and subscribe. Let's get to it. To drape a bodice front and back with no dart on a stretch fabric. I'm wearing a knit dress. This is one of my designs from my collection, and I'm going to be using the same fabric. It's a jersey knit, and it stretches mostly on the width. But we are going to drape it on the bodice, and I'm going to do the front bodice and the back bodice, and let's get to it next. Cut a piece of knit 25 inches long by 16 inches wide and mark as you see it here. So here we are. I have it all pinned down in the center front, quite a few pins on purpose because we're going to be stretching this fabric, so we want it to be very secure around the center front. I also have the apex pinned here, the neckline and the waistline, and just even below the waist. The first thing I'm going to do is establish my neckline underneath intersection and the waistline. We want to make sure that that stays intact, as well as my apex, which is right here. And what we're going to be doing is doing the same procedure that I always show you with the neckline, and that is 2 fingers down, across, and sharply to the intersection on the neckline and the shoulder. We're going to release some of this tension just like we would if it was muslin, and I'm going to cut up, I'm going to slash down, and I'm going to take some of this fabric out. Just take some of this knitted fabric out, get it out of our way, slashing as much as we need to, but never beyond the actual seam line, because then you'll compromise your fit. And what we're going to do is actually just kind of smooth it over. As you can see, I'm smoothing it over and stretching it on the shoulder. We also have this line here parallel to the floor, perpendicular to the center front. Okay, this is the CF for center front. And we're going to start here, and we're going to make this a line actually parallel to the floor, and put a nice pin there to hold that in. We're going to try to absorb what excess we have here and what excess we have above here. The first thing we're going to do is absorb some of the bottom. So I'm just going to take the fabric like this with my hand and just pull it. Pull it like that and stretch it along that waistline. You want to just kind of stretch it along the waistline. If you stretch it too much, you will get pulls. There'll always be a level of pulls, but you have to see how much you're willing to have on the garment and how much you're willing to compromise. Take it out again, and I'm just going to take the fabric like that, and I'm just going to pull along the side seams like that. You want to have some ease here. You have to. That is why you can breathe and move. Knit fabrics need to have a little bit of that. I'm going to take some of this out here like that. I'm going to do some clipping underneath here so that I can work on that as well. And as you can see, it's fitting beautifully. All right, I've stretched it, I think probably enough. Now what you have to do is take this on an angle where the shoulder is and just sort of pull like that. You're going to have a little bit of excess here, that's fine. We're going to absorb it in the armhole. But then we're just going to take it here on the shoulder plate, and we're going to move a little bit. We're going to squeeze a little bit into the neckline. just a little bit. I'm taking it again on an angle and just kind of pulling it around the neckline like that, pulling it here on the shoulder. Just an FYI, there is no such thing as disappearing old darts and they just disappear. They're always going to go somewhere. The beauty is how and where you squeeze them out of. So you're going to squeeze a little bit out of the neckline. You're going to squeeze a little bit out of the armhole. You're going to squeeze a little bit out of the waistline. That is how it's done. It is sort of a trickery of actually designing. So I'm just going to pull this out like this, and I'm just continuing to adjust my pins till I feel like I have the best that I can do right now. If I actually clip that there and clip that there, you will then have it just kind of smooth enough. Once you feel that you have it smooth enough, the marking process. So we're going to be dotting underneath the waist tape like that. If you usually want to drape with something that's pretty light color so that you can see your markings underneath there. I'm going to do a cross mark here at the waistline and side seam intersection. I'm going to pull it as I mark my side seam here like this. Let's get another pin there. And then I'm just going to pull this here all the way up. Underneath the arm plate, we're going to do an intersection. We're going to just trace this underneath the arm plate. You dot on the ridge of the arm plate on the top portion, and then we're going to do the intersection of the shoulder and armhole, and then we're just going to dot, 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 dot all the way to the side to where the neckline is. We're going to dot there as well. So we're just going to dot, dot like that as well. So we've successfully pulled out as much as we can get away with having the little bit of ease here, a little bit of excess here. You have to see where you want to have that excess. And then we have now all the cross marks that we need. We can then do the back, and I can true this. Okay, next step. Okay, here I am on the back. I've also cut a piece 16 inches by 25 inches. I marked the neckline intersection, then I measured about 4 1/4 inches below that, did a perpendicular line to my center back line after drawing the center back line, and now we're ready to drape. Okay, so I have it secured here really well on the center back, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to work on the neckline first. We're going to do 2 fingers down, across, and sharply to the intersection on the neckline like that. And then I'm going to clip down like that. And then clip up, and then clip down. We're trying to release that tension. Remember that tension that we want to get rid of on the neckline. Just like that. You take the pin out and you do the same procedure till it's nice and smooth. So down, across, and sharply to the intersection. Okay, so we have that now. And we want this to be parallel to the floor, perpendicular to the center back. So we're going to hold this securely right there and put a pin, just like that. And we're going to work on the bottom again first. There is the fullness. We're going to take this fullness just like that, and I'm going to pull it tautly on the side seam and then secure it with some pins. Let's secure this with some pins, just like that. As you can see, I'm going to clip below here to release the tension, just like that. Clip off any excess that you will have, like that. Much fabric here, so we're going to take way up the actual piece. The back didn't need as much because there's no bust, so I really didn't need the full width, but we put it there anyways. And you see how I have this pulled already? We want to make sure that the waistline is going to be on the waistline like that. So we can actually put another pin below the waistline and make sure it's lying very well, right? We don't want it to be pulling in any particular direction this way or that way. So we're just gonna kind of pull it till we get it on the side seam like that. Make sure it's smooth. We can release that pull by just clipping up again, and that's releasing the extra on the pull, just like that. I'm going to release it here as well. I'm going to take it and just put another pin here in the center of it. This section here of the side back. This is the side back. It's hard in this angle to show you, and then the top. We're going to pull, remember there's usually a little dart here, we're just going to kind of pull it on an angle going this way over to the shoulder, just like that. See how I did that? And I'm going to pin that secured, just like that. Put another pin secured. And let me get rid of some of this excess as well. You clip off the excess. This is nicely taken out. There's a little bit of ease that you need for movement. We have it nice and smooth on the side. We have it here on the armhole. It's smooth up here. So now I can do some markings. So this is where I'm going to dot, dot, dot around the neckline, just like that. And then find the intersection of the shoulder and neckline. Feel the groove, your shoulder line, the intersection of the arm plate and the shoulder. You dot on the ridge of that armhole. Once you get to underneath, you want to actually trace underneath like that. That's the way you want to do that. And now we have it on the side seam. The side seam should be a bumpy piece, so it should be easy to feel or see if you have white or a very light color like I am doing this. Intersection underneath the waistline, so you want to make sure it's underneath the waistline. Hold this like this and then just dot, 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 dot all the way along underneath. So these are all the markings that we need for the back. Now we're going to do the rest on the flat. Straight, just make it a straight line like that on the side seams. Okay, like that. Here as well on the back. We're going to do the shoulder seam from cross mark to cross mark. Forget about some of the markings that might have stretched out of that cross mark. The same here on the back, just like that. And then we're going to dip the armhole 1 inch down. So I'm going to go 1 inch from underneath the armpit to 1 inch there as well. And we're going to go 1/4 of an inch to nothing, like that. We're actually going to go in a little bit more there, see? 1/4 of an inch here at the drop level and making the new side seam there, like that. We're then going to take our French curve. We're going to put it on the majority of the dots from here to the drop line and make the new armhole. So that's the new armhole there. And the back, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go on the drop marking. It's less of a curve. Follow the majority of the dots here and then fill that in like that. Okay, we've got the neckline we need to put in. So just go ahead. We usually drop that about 1/8 of an inch on the front. So just going to go like that with about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 there. The back, you leave it as is. I'm just going to go ahead and fill in those dots. Waistline, we're going to put it in like that. So we're just doing the majority of the dots. Down here. Okay. Now we're going to add the seam allowance, 1/2 inch everywhere except for the neckline is 1/4. So I'm just going to add my 1/2 inch down here, 1/2 inch on the new side seam, like that, going out, 1/2 inch on this side seam. Okay, 1/2 inch on the hem, like that. Around the armhole, 1/2 inch. So you're just going to mark it like that all the way around as well. 1/2 inch here at the shoulder. The only part that's 1/4 is the neckline. So the neckline is just going to be 1/4 inch seam allowance, like that. 1/2 inch here on the armhole of the back. Around the armhole, like that. 1/2 inch on the back shoulder. And then we're just going to do 1/4 inch here on the back. All right. Let's cut this out. I'm going to cut on the cutting line itself, like this, and I will be right back. At the side seam, and pin that here. Oops. It's a little harder to pin on the knit itself, but go ahead and just try your best to pin it. Same way. You can make them a little further apart, it's okay, like that. Putting any pin that I can find. And just going to the waistline. And then you want to pin the shoulders. It's matching up beautifully. You got the two sides there. It's hard to pin with a knit because a knit is going to fight you. But go ahead and do your best to make sure it's on the actual line. It's pinned together. Let's get it on the mannequin now. Okay, I'm back on the dress form. Now I have the all-important adjustments for fit, because it's hard to see what's going on when you're just draping it and pulling it. So now that it's all pinned together, we can make those adjustments. The first adjustment I made was, instead of going in 1/4 of an inch, I went out, back to the original line that I had. And the first thing that I see here is that I think it might be a little too long on my shoulder. So I am going to make it shorter there and go right on the shoulder part and make those adjustments in red, as you can see here. I'm making the adjustments, so that armhole will have to be changed there. I also see that I need additional room in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and dot the center back where I want to have those additional space over here. The back looks really, really snug. It looks great. The side seam looks great now. And what I'm noticing here on the bottom is that I have a little too much. So what I'm going to do is, on a knit block, you can go in and make it a curved line. It is perfectly acceptable and it's actually recommended. So what I'm going to do is take that and then pull out, see how much I can pull out without making too much of a pull in the front, what I have here. I'm just going to pin that like that, and then try to squeeze out a little bit more. A lot of this will be absorbed in your waistline, so that is perfectly fine, but I'm just going to take out just a little bit more, and that I feel more adjusted with it. So I'm taking out about another 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch here on the bottom, and then I'm going to just curve that line by taking out some more here. So I'm just going to pin that, put it in a little bit further, and I'm just taking it out and adjusting the side seam the way I want it to be. So there we go. Or it has that pull, so I have to be very careful how much I'm willing to take out and how much I'm willing to sacrifice. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that like this. This is all done on the dress form. It's the best way so you can see what's going on. Okay, so there we is. There. Feel more comfortable with that for the back. I wanted to make sure it stays on the side seam like that. And we're good. So that's going to be like this. And I think I want a little bit more on this part here on the back. So I'm going to just take that out as well. I'm going to go like this, and there we go. So any adjustments that you do on your dress form, you need to mark in another color, like this. So now I'm going to just dot the new colors for that new side seam. So those are the adjustments we're going to make, like that, all the way down. Make sure this is at the waist. Make sure this is properly there. I have less here on the waist. You still have to have some. That's normal, the normal pull. And when I draw that out, I'm going to make sure those lines are even and it looks good there. So that's the adjustments you do on the dress form. And then we cut it out just so you can make a sloper out of it. That's the next step. Okay. Okay, so this is the very last step, before you transfer it to make your slope. Now I'm going to correct those lines in red. And the first thing I'm going to do is change that armhole, which is right here, because the shoulder I thought was too long. So I'm just going to go from these dots to the dropped part here, and then draw my new armhole for the front. I'm going to do the same thing to the back. It's just further in like that. So just going to draw that new line there. Okay, the front, I'm going to do a curved line for the side seam. So from that marking here to these markings, I'm going to put my hip curve there and actually make that curve line like that. That is going to be my new front side seam. And this one wants to go straighter, so I'm just going to do that where it wants to be for the back. The back has to be a straight line, so I'm going to just go out from here at the neckline and make that new marking, just like that. Okay, and then I recommend you cut on the actual sewing line or the actual true lines, just like that, because when you're transferring knit to cardboard, it is very difficult with the tracing wheel. So you're just going to cut it like that. So now exactly the shape that you need for your block. And here is that pull itself. The shoulder line. Okay. Got the back seam. So that is your block right there. If you want to transfer it to pattern making paper, or if you want to transfer it to cardboard, that is your block. So that is the last step. So that is your body measurements for a knit bodice: center front, center back, front bodice, back bodice, and there you go. That's your block. So I hope you enjoyed that lesson. I hope it was helpful for you. I hope it was clear for you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.